the next thing we're going to talk about, this will be our video lesson number 2, is going to be box and whisker plots. Now, box and whisker plots are something I think you probably have seen before in junior high or middle school. It's just another way of arranging data. Box and whisker plots are based off of medians. So anytime we use a median, we want to make sure that our data is in order from least to greatest. So then we're going to use our medians from that data to help us make our box and whisker plot. So I'm just going to go into the first example. The first example has these numbers. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So please pause your video and work with me as we do this. I've told you many times math is not a spectator sport. It is one that you have to learn by doing. So get out some paper and do this with me. And plus it'll help you from having to go back and rewatch the video when you go to do your practice. Okay, so first thing we want to do is put this data in order from least to greatest. So I have some zeros. We'll cross them out as I go. And then I have a 1. Then I have a 2. And then a 3. And then it looks like I have a couple of 6s. 1, 2 6s. And I have 3 7s. What happened there? And an 8. So I'm going to count my data and make sure that I didn't leave anybody out. 1, 2, 3. Should have 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so maybe I have everybody in there in order from least to greatest. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to find the median of my entire set of data. So the number in the very middle. So it looks like this 6 right here has 5 numbers to the left of it and 5 numbers to the right. So that would, since it has the same number on both sides of it, then it is the median. All right, some people like to use their fingers and count inward or start in the middle, and that helps them get to the middle number as well. There's an odd amount of data in this group, so that's easier to find the median. When there is an even amount of data, we have to find an average, remember, to find the median. So those will be a little bit more difficult with our box and whisker plots. We'll have a little bit more work to do. So my median is 6. It's my number in the very middle. Now, I have to find something called the Q1 and the Q3, the first quartile and the third quartile. Okay, so the quartile numbers are medians of the first and the second half of the data. So the first half of the data is the numbers to the left of that median 6. So of those 5 numbers, 0, 0, 1, 2, and 3, the 1 is the median of that set of data. So my Q1 number then is 1. Okay. My Q3 is going to be the median of the second half of the data. So the second half of the data are these 5 numbers, 6, 7, 7, 8. There's be a comma there. And the median of those numbers is this 7 in the middle. So my Q3 number is 7. All right, so after you have your median of your whole data and then your 2 medians of your first and second parts of the data, your Q1 and your Q3 numbers, then you're ready to make your box and whisker plot. So the first thing you need for your box and whisker plot is a number line. You've got to have a number line, okay? Some people like to put their number lines underneath their box and whiskers, and some people put them above them. It doesn't matter to me as long as you label. So 0 is my first number in my data. 8 is my last number. So try to evenly space the best you can those numbers, and I'm not very great at that. So you can already tell I'm getting a little too far apart over here. Okay, but try to evenly space the best you can. And Your box is actually made up of your Q1 and Q3 numbers. Okay, those make the outside of the box. So my Q1 number was 1, my Q3 number was 7, and I'm going to make my rectangle, my box, from those two numbers. My median of all the data is 6. So your median of all your data is going to be the line that is inside the box. And so there's your box. This is also called a box and whisker plot. So your whiskers come from your lowest and your highest numbers in your data. So my lowest number of all my data is 0. So I'm going to make a dot at 0, and I'm going to connect that with a line to my box, and that is called a whisker. Same thing, my highest number of all my data is an 8. So I'm going to put a dot at the 8, and I'm going to connect it to my data or my box with a whisker. So there is a box and whisker plot. Now let's just talk about the meaning of different things in this box and whisker plot. We said that 6 is the median of all the data, and that's how we see that line in the middle. Now, a box and whisker plot is also broken into what we call quartiles. So a quartile just means that 25% of your data happens between 0 and 1, a fourth of your data. A fourth of my data happens between 1 and 6. A fourth of my data happens between 6 and 7. And a fourth of my data happens between 7 and 8. Okay, so if you look, there's a big old gap between 1 and 6. That's because there's not very many numbers in our data between 1 and 6. But there's a lot of clusters together between 6, 7, and 8. So that's why the second half of the data is closer together and the first half of the data is more spread out, because there's not as many numbers between 0 and 6. The data is not happening as frequently there. That's why there's a big spread in the box, if that makes sense. So that's why we call these quartiles. All right, just a few more examples. So here's our next set of data. Again, we're going to be working with medians when we're doing box and whisker plots. So the first thing we want to do is arrange our data so that they are in numerical order from least to greatest. So 15 is my smallest, then 20, then 25, then 30, 40, 55, 60, and then 70. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to count and make sure I have the right, everything in its place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I got 8 both times. All right, so since I have 8, which is an even amount of data, I'm going to have 2 numbers in the middle. And it looks like my 2 numbers in the middle are 30 and 40. So my median is going to be the mean of 30 and 40. So I'm going to add 30 and 40 together and divide by 2. So 30 plus 40 is 70, divided by 2 is 35. So my median of all my data is 35. Now, since I have an even amount of data, I'm also going to have to do that with my Q1 and Q3. So my median is halfway between 30 and 40. So my median is right there where I drew that line. So that means I have 2 numbers that are my Q1 numbers. So I get the mean of those. So I'm going to say 20 plus 25 divided by 2. 20 plus 25 is 45. Divided by 2 is 22 and a half. So there's my Q1. My Q2, likewise, over here. My median of my second half of data is going to be between 55 and 60. So I find the mean of 55 and 60. So 55 plus 60 is 115. Divide by 2, and that's 57.5. Okay, so when you have an even amount of data, your box and whisker plot is going to be a little bit trickier, just because it's a little trickier to find your medians and your Q1 and Q3. Sorry, that should be Q3, not Q2. All right, so now you're ready to make your box and whisker. My numbers are ranging from 15 to 70. So I think I'm going to go by tens. You can do that when your numbers are pretty spread out. So I'm going to start with 10 and go 20, 30, 40, 50. I need to make my line a little longer. Sorry about that. 60, 70. All right, some little tick marks. So remember the Q1 and Q3 make my edges of my box. So 22 and a half is one edge of my box. Now we're going to estimate where that is. So 25 would be about right there. So 22 and a half is halfway between 20 and 25. So that edge of the box is going to go about right there. 57 and a half is halfway between 55 and 60. 55 is about right there. So I'm going to go a little bit closer to 60 than that. And I'm very crooked. So there's my box. Remember, my median of everything is in the middle or the inside of the box. So 35 is going to be about right there. And then, as always, the whiskers are made up from your highest and lowest numbers. So we're going to estimate 15 is our lowest number, and it's halfway between 10 and 20. There's that whisker. 70 is my largest number, and I do have a tick mark on 70. And there's my right side whisker. Okay, so again, half the data is lower than 35 and half the data is larger than 35. It's clustered together more this way. So that means those data numbers are closer together and then they get more spread out on the right-hand side of your box and whisker plot. All right, might be a good idea for you to pause right here and do this one as a you try. So pause your video and work on this one for a few minutes. And when you get a chance, when you finish, you can unpause it and I will show you the explanation of how to finish it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put this data in order from least to greatest. I believe 20 is my smallest number. I'm going to mark it out. I can see it better when I mark it out. And then it looks like 23, and then 24. And then I believe my next lowest number is 32. And then 35, and then 36, and then 39. And then I believe it's 42 and 45, and then 52 and 64. So it's very important that you put your number in order from least to greatest anytime you do a box and whisker plot so that you can find your medians pretty easily. Let me count my data, make sure I have numbered correctly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. 11 of numbers in the data, which is good. That means there's an odd number, so it should be easier to pick out our medians and our Q1 and our Q3. Sorry. Median is going to be the number in the very, very middle of all the data. So you can use your fingers and go inward if you would like. I believe 36 is the median. So they should have 5 numbers on each side. So 36 is the median. So my Q1 number is going to be the median of the first side of the data to the left of the 36, which is 24. Whoops, let's jump down. And my Q3 number is going to be the median on the right side of the data to the right of the 36, which is going to be 45. So see how much quicker it is when you have an odd amount of data. Can't always be that way, but it's lucky when it is. So my numbers are pretty spread out between 20 and 64. Again, you can go by tens and then just estimate with your boxes. and your whiskers and things. So I'm going to start to do that. So 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So you try to make it evenly spaced. I know that's difficult. I don't have a ruler, so that's why mine does not look very evenly spaced. Remember, our Q1 number and our Q3 number makes our boxes. So 23 is about halfway. It's a little less than halfway between 20 and 30. So that box is going to go about right there. 45 is halfway between 40 and 50. So there's my box. 36 is inside the box. 36 is a little bit more than halfway between 30 and 40. I drew that a little bit too far over. Let me try to get a little bit closer to the middle. Yeah, good enough. And my lowest number is 20. And there's that whisker. And my highest number of my data was 64. All right. So again, half of the data is below my 36, and the other half of the data is above 36. Now, if you look, there's a big old stretch in that last whisker. So something that we can call that when we see a big long whisker in a box and whisker plot, we can call that an outlier. An outlier is when you have a number that is farther away from the majority of your data. Okay, so it kind of stretches out a long whisker. That's how we usually see it on a box and whisker plot. So an outlier is a number in the data that is way outside the box. Sometimes people that are analyzing data might throw out outliers. We know an outlier can skew an average higher or lower depending on the situation. So if we were to take a test and one person kind of bombed it, maybe they were absent that week or were sick or whatever, then that would be an outlier and it might pull the rest of the class average down. Or maybe your grades weren't so good on your practice and all of a sudden you started turning in your work and you made a 100 on it. That could also pull your grade up. So outliers can be good or bad, but they tend to skew an average. So that is all we're going to talk about for box and whisker plots. So work on your practice for box and whisker plots and let me know if you have any questions. Have a good day.